There was a big breaking yesterday. The Oklahoma Bureau of Investigation confirmed to Tulsa World on Tuesday, or so I guess it was on Tuesday, sorry, that it has completed its years-long investigation to Epic charter schools and turned over case to State Attorney General for consideration. In this tweet thread, the state auditor inspector told lawmakers at the Capitol Tuesday that mismanagement by co-founders of Epic is the largest amount of reported abuse of taxpayer funds in the history of the state. And she has no idea why the attorney general has not brought criminal charges. So anyway, on January 20th, the attorney general went to Tulsa radio station and said he was still waiting on the OSBI report. So anyway, all of this is culminating largely around the attorney general, but I think it's worth pointing out Stitt's ties to this too, because the executive branch enforces a lot of the laws and has the ability to push legislation that would corral these guys. Epic's still out there making a ton of money, and there is so much evidence now via these constant investigations that they're committing huge amounts of fraud. I just know from my own experience. I used to monitor the virtual charter board for the state as part of the teachers union, and we never took a super strong position on it because back then Epic was a lot smaller and people just were still trying to suss out what it was. But I have never experienced a more incompetent group of humans in my life. People who these were the regulators supposed to be holding Epic accountable, and they couldn't even hold them to answering basic questions about what they were doing. So anyway, all this to say, it's coming out. State, of course, is silent on it. And it's a ton of corruption, people really, Tulsa World's done some really good stuff. Oklahoma Watch has done some really good stuff. But yeah, people really need to be calling on the AG and even Stitt to do something about this. Of course, these guys have given, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to political interests over the last few years because, they become millionaires off of running a virtual school. Have any of you guys ever had experience with the virtual school? You guys are young enough to have possibly even done an Epic.
I personally, obviously, haven't. I didn't attend Epic, but I had a roommate once upon a time who was putting her two children through Epic, and she was having a terrible time. She had an autistic son, and they were not accommodating to him at all. Basically, they were trying to fail him through all of this stuff instead of trying to help him through it. There would be times that they couldn't get a hold of the teacher at all when they needed something. And then there would be times that the teacher is blowing them up so they can't even get through the work that they're trying to get done. It was a mess. And I think so much information has been coming out since since the start of the pandemic about virtual schools and kind of the impact that it has on students. And I'm not at all a proponent of keeping kids in school, let them all die from COVID, but some pretty interesting numbers came out last year saying that basically students retain 40% less of the information being taught to them when they're in a virtual classroom environment. So I just think that's, there's so much to it that's interesting when we're not even talking about the corruption and all of that stuff, just literally the quality of learning and education for the students. Mm-hmm. But then corruption and all of this bullshit, and it's none of this is good. I can't think of any positive to say about it. So
no, it's my experience just monitoring them. They just reported crazy stuff. Their graduation rates were atrocious. There were just so many problems that I get that it works for some kids and some families are very happy with it, and obviously, if it works for them, I don't care. But there's all these stories we're hearing and all these situations and all these outcomes that we're seeing that it doesn't work. And then you add on to it this massive amount of embezzling and, sketchy uses of money. And anyway, It's like, why, why are, like, I understand public schools have challenges and some people are upset about that, but it's like, why would we replace it with this thing that is obviously much, much worse? And then, of course, the pandemic hits and everyone goes virtual and it just spirals the problems. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, Athena says, I want to know if those numbers would stay the same if we had actually prepared, because I wouldn't call 2020 a good remote learning experience.
Not at
Like,
all. And that go ahead.
no, go ahead.
That's absolutely part of the problem, as they were, that they were talking about in the articles that I was reading about it last year, when I was doing a little bit of research, was that we weren't prepared for this. We didn't take any steps. We as a country like to react instead of, being proactive. And that is a huge part of the virtual learning experience, because all of this has just been like experimentation between, different states and school districts and all this shit. Like, nobody's on the same page. Nobody knows what's going on. There's hardly any way to regulate it. It's a
If
mess.
we wanted to have a successful education system, there would be some degree of social planning, which all of a sudden, the second I say that, a lot of people have some dog whistles that go up. Social planning, oh my God. It sounds like you're talking about you don't want to have like what this country stands for. And no, I'm not going to get into the conversation about capitalism. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. This is about having a good public education system. Point blank.
Meet people where they're at. Yeah. Give the people what they need.
You want solid businesses? Okay, invest in your education system. You want good nonprofits and private agencies still? Invest in your education system. You want to be able to teach people how this works? Invest in your education system. You want to keep people here? Invest in your education system. The problem, and the thing is too, is like the models exist. Like, we can talk. Representative Jacob Rosecrans has his bill on community schools, which talks about re-envisioning what a public school district even looks like, right? Adri, you and I, we've been college students. Literally, we've worked in a hybrid environment before, and we know what works and what doesn't work. There's no reason at this point why we should be fucking ourselves over with bad education systems. And not even just to bring that up, but like Epic. This has been for all of Stit's term and beyond.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, they've been in business like
let's just call it what it is. It's just basically like AAA version of money laundering. Like, it's a scheme. It's just a scheme. It is a freaking scheme. So,
Yeah, I will say, my experience with virtual school has been much better this year than last year. Just going through the traditional public schools, like they've kind of all adopted sort of hybrid models where they can shift to virtual if they need to. And, the kids have something to do. The teachers are kind of set up to do the technology. It has been a lot better. And what's great about that model is like, yeah, okay, you got to go virtual for a week because of COVID or because whatever. You can. And then you go back to class and you get to see your teacher and your friends. And anyway, it's like kind of the best of both worlds. And probably, honestly, how we should have rolled virtual school out to begin with instead of giving it to a private company that's going to bilk us for millions of dollars.
When has it ever worked for a public government to contract with a private entity for an entire education system? Yeah. When has that worked?
Yeah. It's like I get privatizing maybe little parts here and there, even though I honestly often don't. It's usually cheaper and better to in-house it. But this has been a disaster for years, and now it's like the state auditors is begging them to like literally press charges against these guys. So
pain. This is literally pain. Like, here's my thing. I'm like, have a bunch of leftists run schools, and you'll see that this is working a lot more effectively in terms of all that sort of stuff.
And the kids will come out smarter because we're going to teach you.
We'll actually teach you. Our whole goal is based around education and public services. Like, stop trying to put all these people, like, I get it. Like, every entity has a budget like a business, but this is not a business, okay? It's social impact work. It does not function like that. It is not like a product or a module that you're going to be selling out to people. This is, oh, man. All right. I'm done.
Yeah, we got on a rant. It's like, public goods. We need public goods, and every kid needs an education, and it should meet them where they're at. It should be varied. It should have accommodations, all that stuff. It's sadly, we just don't talk in those terms enough, in my opinion, because I think if we did, like, people would be like, oh yeah, you're right, we do need that. That is a lot better than just giving it over to some private company that just sees them as like profit units and wants to just run up the score. All right, anyway.
We need to talk to them about it in ways that they'll, like, in their own language, like, you know, they're all fear-mongered by crime rates and shit. Like, look what happens when you invest in education. Your crime rates go down.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Health outcomes improve, you know, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, yep. Thanks for watching our video. Please give it a like and hit that subscribe button for more content. If you want to engage with us, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram.